Okay, so this is part 2. For some reason, that video just ended. So it's part 2 about has the Mandela Effect ruined your life? Okay, so where I left off in the last one was that I was in Boca Raton a few years back, and there was what seemed to be a transparent globe above me. Okay, so in case you haven't seen the video before this, I'll just kind of start it. Okay, so I was out walking, and I kind of got a little bit freaked out because I seen some sort of a light. Something caught my eye. And I looked up, and I seen people in the sky. And so I kind of hid behind a tree, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, am I in somebody's ant farm? You know, it was weird. I looked up at the sky, and I thought, well, because my first thinking was it was a helicopter spotlighting for like a robber or something, because in that area, they had done that a few times. I'd visited for a couple months, and they had done that. And so, so I kind of looking around, and it's, you know how if you have a spotlight on the ground and you're trying to see something in the sky, it kind of moves slowly. It don't go like willy-nilly, right? It's a spotlight in the sky, so it's a big deal, right? Okay, so if the helicopters, first of all, you'll hear a helicopter. You'd hear something somewhere, and then the light that goes on the ground, sometimes it might be fast. Maybe if it's loose, I don't know, on its thing or whatever, it might be fast. Okay. Maybe there's a lighthouse on the beach, or someone's doing something. Okay, so there's different lights that I thought, okay, well, it could be. And so I was like assessing it, right? And I'm like, it can't be any of them. It was really like I was in a dome clear tent, kind of a brownish, whitish clear, and I could see shadow people walking up above, and a light, like I was in a tent in someone's yard, and they got a flashlight, and they're like, what are you doing in there? What are you doing? Obviously I didn't hear anything, but yeah, there was no sound at all, but it was going too fast. You know, so to be in the sky and a spotlight, you know, be slower, like a giant flashlight out of a plane or something. I mean, where was it? What was it coming from? There's no mountains, right? It's Boca Raton. It's flat, right? And so it was really profound to me, and it startled me. And then I'm like, how weird is this? Like, you know, and I had been a couple years that I knew the Mandela Effect. And so that was really weird to me. And then in the last video I talked about, I was in Sweet Home, Oregon a few years ago, and I was standing in a creek, and I watched the sky glitch. So I watched the clouds go by, and I'm just kind of watching them. There's no other clouds really. And I look up, and they go backwards, and then they go forward again. I have a photographic memory. I can play it right now. I got my camera out, but you know, it didn't happen again. And so the Mandela Effect ruining people's lives. As I said in the last video, this is my experience. This is experience from consulting with people. They really feel like it ruined their life, because if they hadn't have known, they would have, well, first of all, it's wrecked a lot of relationships. It's a lot of gaslighting. People think that people are crazy and messed up, and they get mad at relationships. This, you know, because people they can't wrap their heads around it, and they get angry at the Mandela Effect. They're angry that they're in a different reality, or they won't accept it. And they're like, you know, if I didn't know this stuff, my life wouldn't have been like that. You know, like maybe they'd have went to college, or go ahead and get the job here, or write this book, or do this or do that. But the Mandela Effect, like, it really makes you feel not real, right? And we're not. We're I was gonna say we're glitches in the Matrix. As starseeds and lightworkers, we are, but we're like in a video game, right? We're in a simulation. We're projecting reality, and it's like my whole life, it was theory to me in a way. It was like, you think positive, you get a positive life. When I realized in 2016 that my thoughts were projecting reality, and that my beliefs and my thoughts were creating my reality, then I set out to perfect my own thinking and and I've been working on it for years and years and years, right? And I keep switching realities, and I know I've switched. There's profound differences that I know, but I'm still not. And like I said in the last video, I don't want to sound negative. I know I create my own reality or whatever, but I've not created the reality that I want, right? So, but then Spirit tells me, well, it's like a video game, right? Because we probably are in a video game of the Mandela Effect, ruining our lives. But you can only go to the upper limits of that game. So until mass consciousness reaches another level, you kind of can only go to a certain level. So, and if you didn't know that, if you still thought, oh, well, it's trivia, or I don't know, because I don't know the exact day that the sun changed. I have no idea. I know for sure the yellow sun. I took pictures all the time. I don't know that exact day when my life changed. Did it ruin my life? I don't know what day it ruined my life, right? I know I stopped my investigative blogging because I decided instead of reporting on corruption, I was creating it and projecting it, like the movie Tomorrowland with George Clooney. It's a kind of a kid's show, but it's a really good show. And spoiler alert, but yeah, that the people thought they were monitoring the reality, but they were projecting the reality. And so I stopped everything, but then it's like, well, then what? Nothing matters. Why bother, right? And people get suicidal. They get crazed. They get, why do I have to, okay, so I got to keep going to work. I still have to take care of my kids. I still have to take care of so even though reality's shifting and these amazing supernatural things, buildings are popping up and stuff's happening, and you're seeing this supernatural stuff in the sky, and you're like some sort of a cartoon avatar in somebody's game, probably your higher self, that you came here to have experiences. So there is a purpose, but it is frustrating at times with the Mandela effect, which I call a quantum effect or a timeline shift, for people that know they've shifted 100%, and maybe their family, people around them don't believe that. But it's like, now what? And though I chose the path of working on myself and healing myself, and I'm 5 fucking years in now, right? Ooh, I'm perfect now. Right, I'm still going through layers and layers and layers. And I still choose that because I dedicate my life to the highest and best version of me and raising the consciousness of Mother Earth and her people. And I know through the Mandela effect, I project reality. So the more work I do on me and anybody in my entire life or any lifetimes or anything that's in my ancestral line, anything that I work through, I'm doing for all of society. I'm doing for the whole consciousness. I'm doing for Source to experience itself here on Earth, or wherever we are. Like now, where are we? Are we on inner Earth? I mean, how profound, right? We were on the Sagittarius arm, so the left-hand side of those we are here maps in the universe. And now we're on the right-hand side. We're on the Orion arm. We've moved thousands of light years. This stuff is supernatural and profound and amazing. So all these little petty things of jobs and all of this regular world stuff means nothing when you've seen reality shift. When the trees are holograms, I'm a hologram, right? Because holograms can't be dense. Well, in a dream, they are. In a dream, so I've said this in other videos, but you're swimming, you're driving a car, you're walking, you're, lifting something up. You feel like you have density. Like my hand doesn't just go through me, right? You feel that in a dream too. So holograms can have density, and I found it very odd that, oh yes, I've shifted to a whole new reality. Why do I have my same scars, right? Why do I have the same teeth that are missing from the other realities or whatever? What shifts and what doesn't is crazy making. So you just be like, okay, I don't know anything about the Mandela effect. Or you can, people, they want to just keep ignoring it. And when I keep talking to them about it, they're like, look, just shut the fuck up, right? I don't care. They're like, I still got to feed my kids. I still got to pay my mortgage. I still got to go to work. And I'm like, oh my God. But if you perfect your frequency, there would be a different way. But even in creating the different way, then you're in bliss, right? But then what is bliss, right? Just another frequency. So people would get mad at knowing about the Mandela effect. Yes, people that you tell, they get mad because they don't want to be wrong. They don't want to feel like their whole life it was a waste. They don't have any control over anything. And what, now I'm a cartoon in a cartoon character in a cartoon movie? You know, I'm seeing things that there's no way that the life or reality before that I would have thought was a thing, right? That I can see clouds go backwards. I can see people in the sky. You know, I've seen sunsets, like in Florida on the Panhandle. I've seen a sunset that direction and that direction at the same time. The people that lived there for many, many years that I was visiting, I said, is that the sunset? They're like, oh yeah, it's a sunset. And I'm like, well, then what, was that the sunset? They're like, yeah, it's sunset. And I'm like, well, so sun's setting in completely two opposite directions. And they're like, I've never seen that before. I never heard somebody say so many times. They're like, I never saw that before, because I kept pointing out different things. I'm like, why is the light doing that, right? Why is this doing that? Why is the... And those particular folks that I was visiting kept saying, they kind of were open to the Mandela effect, but then one day we were out eating and they're like, okay, so we see it. So? Right. What difference does it make to your life? Especially people, they stay in their groove. They're like, well, I still have to do all these things, but you don't. Once you 100% realize, someone cracked me up, that you are creating reality, you can create a different way of life. But we can only go to the ceiling, right? Because we have to wait for mass consciousness to get to 51%. And oh my God, right? So the Mandela effect hasn't really ruined my life, but it changed everything about the nature of life and reality that I ever believed or ever knew. Now, or it kind of made it real. So I studied metaphysics, occult, esoteric my whole life. I've been in touch with spirit. I've had visions, but I've also had a lot of anxiety, a lot of post-traumatic stress. My mother was very verbally abusive and violent. And I have that, you know, and so I kind of forgot what I was saying through that, but completely forgot. Probably saying the stuff about my mother, but oh, that I've always been a seer. So, right. So those two things were at odds with each other, really. So I knew the truth, but I still had all the post-traumatic stress and all the programs and stuff to work through. And so I studied, like I said, I was a psychic at a young age. I left my body. I would leave my body purposely. I would know when I was astral traveling or walking around the room. I've studied esoteric, occult, metaphysics my entire life. I just turned 50 last October. So I'm all book learned on it too. Never knew that the Mandela effect, what people call the Mandela effect, which is a quantum effect, you know, quantum leap, I never knew that existed. I never knew that it was literal, that yes, positive thoughts create a positive reality, but it's literal and you shift, and no wonder my mother glitched all the time. And now I know why. Right? She lost things. Like I would see her put keys on a desk and the next minute they wouldn't be there. Right? Well, then the child did something with them, right? Well, I didn't. And she'd throw fits about, we got to find this and we got to find that. And if we don't find my watch, we're not going to the beach and blah, blah, blah. And shit would disappear. And I used to think it was a certain desk, right? Like this ghostly. Now I know it was a timeline shift because she was so upset and distressed all the time and depressed and anxiety ridden and wanting to die and all these different things that she was actually going in and out of realities. And I guess I was going with her. I mean, in a way, like as the child, because I remember seeing the stuff from the desk and then I was in a reality where it wasn't on the desk. Right. And this happened all the fucking time, especially this one roll away desk we had. And so now I understand. Once I learned about the Mandela effect, I understood everything I'd ever known and studied. I got mad at a lot of things come up first. I'm like, this is how it's happened. This, like, because you feel a loss of control because really you're in more control because you're projecting and creating your reality. But you feel a loss of control because you're like, great, I'm just a cartoon. And I'm just an avatar in somebody's playground, and that somebody is me. But and if I have these nice thoughts, I'll create a nice reality. Well, I can only go a certain distance until everybody else goes too. So then I create more and more and more peace. And what I created was living in a car, because that's the most peaceful thing. But I would rather have more comfort and have the other things that were already coming to my reality before I knew about the Mandela effect. I'm not saying it's about the Mandela effect, but my peacefulness and my integration of self got more and more to the level of away from linear time, away from other people's stuff. Because once I join their reindeer games, and get regular jobs and regular society stuff, then I start to create more of regular society. And I draw more of that to me. But how do you go about your corporate jobs or your selling this or doing that when you fucking know you're in a movie? When you know that your anatomy's changed, right? My heart, right? It used to be here and it's here, right? Okay, I don't see inside there, so I don't know, right? The kidneys used to be here, now they're here. What? This is not processable, right? So, like I said, so everything I'd ever studied, and I'd studied quantum physics, but not, in depth. But the double blind, the split, if the observer affects the electron. So you cannot have a scientific experiment or any action in anything in life that the observer does not affect the experiment or the reality or the people involved. By the observer watching, you literally change reality. You change what's happened. And I'd studied that stuff, that show what the bleep, and that thoughts create reality, in the fact that Amaro Emoto, the water studies, positive thinking, positive words to the water change the water. And we're mostly water. And so that in what the movie What the Bleep, it was so profound to me. So I got more and more into, okay, positive thoughts, imagery, hold what you want. But I didn't understand the moment of a quantum shift until I heard about the Mandela effect. And then I realized that I'd already been noticing things. Bragg's was a big deal for me because I'd seen it a couple days before. So I had a shift pretty close, even though it's just a brand name. But my eyes, I don't even know where we're at now, but there was a black circle around the colored part, and there never used to be. And then that shifted. And some things have shifted and shifted back. And now when I question people about the Mandela effect, now I'm finding they're coming from let's say they're coming from all over, all the countries. So say there's Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, Earth 4, Earth whatever. They're coming from all of them. So they might be like, yes, I remember the heart in the center, but I also remember the yellow sun. And so we're getting, as we merge these timelines, we're getting a different sense of reality. The newer people, those of us who shifted, say 2016, there was a mass exodus, a mass shift, and then there was more and more waves. I believe each new wave has a different set of integration. So they might believe that the lion and the lamb never existed. No, that the lion and the lamb existed, and not the wolf and the lamb, but they remember the white sun. So they have a combination of the different things. So that they're from even yet another place. And so it's clearly visible as the timelines collapse. And, 2016, so that's 5 years, it's hard to go back to regular frickin' life when you're in a simulation, when you're experiencing quantum reality, and everybody's going along this is important and that's important and let's build this and what are you going to do in 5 years and here's the job and and you want to move to a reality that has different sets of things. And so it really is a mind-blowing. Are my lips matching sometimes? If my lips aren't matching, just look away, because sometimes that happens. But it is frustrating to exist and make a life and get money for food and still be part of their system that's your system, that's actually a board game, created this simulation game. It's frustrating to sit in it and know you can shift realities and not necessarily know specifically how, other than get rid of all your triggers and programs and change your frequency and voila, you'll have that new reality you want. not really a simple set of instructions, right? So, but you did shift, and you can shift. So then it's about learning how to shift. And that's what I've been doing the last 5 years. And I have shifted and shifted and shifted. But you can't shift until you do the fucking work, the shadow work, the dark night of the soul, the triggers, the programs, all your mother stuff, your ancestor stuff. Because as light workers too, and human beings in incarnation, we came here to infiltrate ourselves, to remove these programs, remove these things that to provide the cure, to provide the healing. And it's sometimes very frustrating because I sit in an energy of supernatural awe where I'm like on a permanent vision quest, right? So 5, 6, 7 years just go by. And I'm in that vision quest, you like see in the movies where they don't have food or water, and they have all these visions, hence vision quest. But they're not really talking to people. They're isolated by choice, but they have an extreme connection to the ether, to the water, to animals, to every little noise of every little critter. I'm so hypersensitive to the air and the energy of the air, and I get more and more into it. And so I kind of took a break from it in having my church building, because I spent the days there, and I let that go about a month ago. And as I roll back into the lifestyle I've had the last 6 years, it's so supernatural. I feel like I'm part of the sky, part of the air, part of the water, part of the trees. I feel no separation. My body, we have to still maintain the functioning of this vehicle, right? Keep it alive, walking around, stay out of everybody's, don't be walking in the middle of the road, stuff like that. But at the same time, I know what it feels like to not have my body. And when I walk out on the docks over the water, I feel that unity consciousness they talk about, I feel that I am one with everything, but even being one with everything, I'm distinctly me. I used to get so upset at that, my 20s or whatever. Like, I don't like the idea of the one, everything being just one big mash, right? I'm just a little bitty drop in a big old, and I don't even matter. And now I get it, that it's so phenomenal. This supernatural part of the air, part of the sky, part of the stars, the leaves. I feel this connected in part with every single thing, but I still have my separate identity. And that was my fear back then, was that I would be so merged with the one, the great source, that I wouldn't have my separate consciousness. But I do, and I will, and I don't fear that. But anyway, back to the topic of the Mandela effect. Did the Mandela effect ruin your life? You can go down that role of like, well, it stopped what I was doing. It stopped my writing projects. It stopped. I wasn't really depressed, but I was like, what the fuck? And what now, right? And what do I do? And the only thing that came to me in my spirit guides was to just keep working on me, because you don't matter. The trees, the trees, it's a whole nother thing, but nothing matters other than what I believe matters, because I project reality. And at times it's disheartening to people, because it's like, they've been in relationships with people for quite some time and they shift. Crazy examples like the ketchup. You heard the stories that people are like, all of a sudden their partner's like, oh, I love ketchup on this. So like, you don't like ketchup. You never liked ketchup. Like, just kind of a distinct thing that they either no ketchup, never liked ketchup, or never liked mustard, never liked something. And then they're like, yeah, I've always liked it. It's crazy making. And yeah, it's just food, but it makes you second guess yourself. And then sometimes people, I haven't met people, but I've seen people do videos on the internet about like having siblings they didn't know they had, having kids they didn't know they had. So they shifted to realities. Buildings shifted to realities where some people are back alive. I don't know any personal on those sorts of things, but it is kind of crazy making in a way. And like I said, shifting and still having the same teeth that I had pulled as a kid gone, the same scars and stuff, but I'm in a different body. So that means that you had similar experiences and similar emotions, because emotions create a lot of the physical stuff. So even though you're in a different body, you still have to integrate those emotions so that you can process it, because that's part of the game, the board game here, or part of the matrix, or whatever we created this space to experience. And I want to believe, and I choose to believe for me, that I was part of creating this, that I chose this experience. And so when I get frustrated, I try to be kind to myself, because I believe that I created, what's going on here. The people that want to say, you didn't see it, it's not really happening, it's CERN, all of these different people that talk about something that's fearful, and this happened to you and you didn't create it. What's the point in that? Even if I wanted to believe that, or even if that was a hardened fact for somebody, why in the heck would I want to believe that when it's so, not only is it negative, but it's so like self-defeating. It's almost like Christianity. And Christianity has nothing to do with Jesus Christ, right? Christianity talks about following the path of resistance and staying in your marriage even if you're miserable, and hanging in there, and that's crazy making. I forget my point on that. But so no, I'm not going to definitively say the Mandela Effect ruined my life, but it has frustrated me at times of knowing, so what? So I know that I can shift realities. How do I do it? And that's what I dove into first, right? Studying all the timeline stuff. And there was so much of it back then in 2016. But then the trivia and all the other stuff just kind of blurred it. So I still have all that. I started writing a book about it immediately. I started getting internet sites about it, going to do videos, because, I'd been an investigative blogger before. But then I was like, what does it matter? Tell everybody what it is. We're going to shift to a reality where they already know, right? You can spend 50 years studying something, studying. You've learned it. You've made this discovery. You switch to reality where people have known it for 50 years. And one of the funny things is that Bashar, I know you guys know Elan, right? So E-L-A-N. Now, Elan is Bashar channeled from some other guy. And Bashar, the mainstream one, is channeled by Daryl Ank. And it's so funny because I paid 2 winters ago, I paid for up to the minute, right then, channeled information at a seminar from Bashar by Daryl Ank. And then I listened to Elan, which are free, and Daryl Ank charges. And it was from the early mid-90s. And it was the exact thing that Daryl Ank was saying, channeling Bashar, this 20 years later. What? So it's like, learn yourself, know, integrate, do what you prefer, experience, just chill, just watch, just relax, just keep going, because the shift, I remember reading, my dad had the book called Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard, and I didn't know nothing about Scientology and all that back then, but what was really profound about it is the niacin studies and the niacin flush. And I really like that. And then there would be these exercises of, visualize your shoulders just kind of spreading, and just, all these just different visualization stuff that was really cool. But then there was this part, and I was in my 20s, very egotistical of me, right? It's like, okay, so you spend your life studying. You spend your life channeling information, writing stuff, working hard, and then you're going to come to a time, say 20, 30 years from now, and the newbies, like the youngins, right, they're just going to know. So they didn't do all that. I'm like, they got to do the work. I did the work. Like those people are like, they got to pay off their student loans. I paid off my student loans. But I was like thinking, well, why bother, right? But as light workers and starseeds, us doing the work over decades ushered in the energy. So we created the energy for those new beings to come here. Nubians. Nubians and Arcturian Syrians, they come here they needed a higher consciousness on earth in order to incarnate here. And we assisted them with that as light workers. So we came here to do that work, and we did the work. And then the Nubians come in, the newbies, and they already know, right? So, and they know a lot more. And then we're like, oh, you know, I don't know. So the Mandela effect kind of does that to you. It's like, why bother, right? Because I'm just going to shift to reality where everybody already knows. But you're also ushering in that reality. But it's so like against ego and against like any sort of giving anybody credit or kudos or success, or because you've created something amazing and you've seen something amazing, and then everybody already knows and they've known for 10 years. But I just knew, right? And so it's just, yeah, it's kind of frustrating. So, but when you let all of that go and you embrace the magic and the supernatural, then you know that you're creating reality. And just keep playing with it. And that's where I'm at now. You know, I've over the last year, I've done magical things with creating things in my life. And they've been experiences, a bit of hard knocks and things that I didn't know I still had to cleanse and get over, and learning not to control outcome, learning not to control other people, learning to resting, you know, healing people with my church, experiencing that energy of my church, and learning a lot about myself that I thought I'd already kind of cleansed and went through. And so, but I have done magic in the last year. I feel very magical. And so now I'm resting, I'm integrating that magic, but I'm doing something a little different. Whereas instead of visualizing what I want, talking positive, blah, 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 I'm calling it to me. So I'm saying specifically what I want and calling it to me. While at the same time, I'm grieving. I'm processing different lifetimes. I'm processing other versions of me. I'm processing my parents' programs, the programs in my DNA, processing people who have hurt me, because that's just a program if I'm going to be hurt, right? But my cellular memory has that pain. And in this entire lifetime and in other versions of me and other incarnations on other planets, there's lots of it. But I'm integrating so much emotion now from different versions of me that it's just about letting the grief come up, letting the anxiety come up, and just sitting in it. And, you know, I'm now using the Mandela Effect knowledge to just really keep practicing on the magic and the supernatural to create my reality. Yes, I know I'm in a glitched, I'm in a system that can glitch and back up and go forward, and where you might see a seam in the sky and where it looks all phony, it'll be like you're in a movie. It's just so profoundly beautiful sometimes that it's not real. I've zoomed in on the sun, the white sun's like not there. And so it's crazy making, but if you just go, wait, now I just come in, I chose this board game, I chose this video game, I chose this simulation. I wanted to experience this. I'm here experiencing for source and for myself, and I chose this. And to not get too wrapped up in looking right at that it's not real and it can change at any moment, because it's crazy making and it paralyzes you. Anyway, I kind of jumped around on that, but I'll talk more about the people that I've consulted and myself of, like, you know, the Mandela Effect ruining your life, having had that knowledge. But, you know, if lives can be ruined, I guess, you know, it basically was a complete redirect for me. But I also at times got a little frustrated and perhaps depressed of ideas that I had that I'm like, why bother? There's no sense in it. Just go lay down and keep working on my stuff, my frequency, and I'll shift to reality where that's already there. And so there's some of that. Much more on the Mandela Effect, timelines merging, and other things by Reverend Crystal Cox Dashmi. Another day. I love you all. Bye for now, and God is bless.